Right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us on Daybreak this morning. Now let's take a look at our first discussion. The supplementary elections took place during the weekend in Adamawa State and other states as well to enable the electorates choose their next governor and some parts of the country. Now, where eligible voters elected 24 members of the House of Representatives and 8 senators. Now, this morning, on Daybreak, we will be analyzing the supplementary elections with Jide Ojo, and Mr. Ojo is a political scientist, a columnist, an author, and also a public affairs commentator. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, Mr.
My
Jide.
pleasure. Good morning. Happy New Week,
Happy New Week to you too as well.
Yeah.
All right, so taking a look at the supplementary elections that happened during the weekend, in your opinion, how would you describe it? Especially in Adamawa State.
Adamawa is the sore point, but unfortunately, well, Adamawa scenario leaves a sore taste in the mouth. But again, let's not focus only on that, because elections that were held were in over 12 states. Adamawa just happened to be a sore point. I mean, we have elections in Sokoto. The 3 senatorial election in Sokoto was inconclusive, and nothing untoward happened. We have Kebbi, where similar governorship election was declared inconclusive ab initio. It was concluded there were no issues. We have in Oyo State, we have in Kaduna, in Lagos, all over. I mean, all over. Two scenarios, 2 things that stood out. Again, negative news makes news, and negative things make news. Adamawa and Akwa Ibom. Because from what I read, lives were lost in the Akwa Ibom scenario. One newspaper quoted about 6 people dead. And INEC had to cancel the election afresh. That's sheer waste of resources.
Honestly.
I mean, the election could not be held conclusively on the first ballot way back in on February 25. Over 1 month after, you still went in 17 local 17 polling units, and these people will not allow peaceful conduct of the election. They killed, they maimed, they destroyed the election material, and now Cyril Omoregbe, resident electoral commissioner for Akwa Ibom State, has said that election is utterly cancelled. Now, coming back to the Adamawa scenario, it leaves a sore taste in the mouth, to the extent that someone I consider a learned friend, as we say in law, who usurped the role of a returning officer to make a declaration, even without result. As in, you just stood up and started saying somebody is the winner of the election. Meanwhile, results are still being collected. For what purposes? Was he acting a script? Don't forget, there was a leaked audio where this same rec, who happens to be a lawyer, purportedly was instructing somebody to say, let's help this woman. I don't know whether you heard that, but that's part of what I gathered. Now, you had that audio tape leaked, and you still went ahead to act the script. You are not even concerned that you've been found out to have descended into the fray. And this is why we in civil society, we in the media, when we are raising issue about partisan nature of some of the people that President Buhari appointed into INEC, when we raise those issues and even when sent letters to the National Assembly that some of these people should not be confirmed, they say we are Abu Rosas. But it has come out very clearly. Remember the case of what's this woman that was taken to NDDC now? What's her name now? The new the chairman of NDDC. who happens to be a head to the president, who was initially nominated as a national commissioner in INEC. Loretta Onoche, God bless you. Loretta Onoche. She was not. Just imagine if someone like Loretta Onoche, if there were no hues and cries against her nomination and it has sailed through, and something like this. Something again also happened yesterday in Adamawa, where a national commissioner was stripped. It's unprecedented. It's unprecedented. And it shows that going forward, in fact, so many people will be afraid to take up the role of resident electoral commissioner or national commissioner, because what has happened now is the open partisanship. When I saw the trending video, this man stood up with police commissioner by his side and said, I now pronounce Senator Aisha Binani. Where is the breakdown of the result upon which you are acting? At least if a returning officer was going to declare somebody winner, you said this is the overall score of each of the candidates. And then after that, you get to even the party agent will sign that, okay, this is a true reflection. But results were being collated. And even from press report, as before that unholy declaration was made, the press report said the incumbent governor, Amadou Fintiri, was leading in 10 local governments where results have so far been collated as at that time. Assuming without conceding that you have information that that lead was neutralized, allow the entire process to be, to pan out, and let the rightful person who had been appointed conclude. I recall that even when in February 25 election in Rivers State, it so happened that the professor who happens to be the vice chancellor of Niger Delta University in Bayelsa, who then was the returning officer, when his life was put under threat, and he said he's not going ahead with the coalition, they had to guarantee his safety. The commissioner of police in Rivers State assured him that they will reinforce security around him. He should go ahead and do his job. The REC in Rivers did not descend to the arena as to usurp the responsibility of the returning officer. So this is a new, this alter. I'm a gender activist. I want Binani to win. I wish she wins. But if she must win, let it be seen that she won fair and square. Not that her victory was said. Because when you see the social media trending yesterday, particularly from yesterday afternoon, the opposition elements, this is what we are telling you people, that these people just wrote result, they just announced result and all of that. But as it is said in my part of the world, one slave, the misaction or inaction or the bad action of one slave will make people to blame 200 others. Just because one person acted wrongly. And I'm happy, let me say this, that promptly after that declaration was made, under 10 minutes, the INEC National headquarters nullified that pronouncement and said that the REC and the returning officer and any other person that has to do with that election should come to the headquarters in Abuja, which shows that at least they were able to quickly douse tension, because by now maybe only God knows how many deaths will have been recorded in Adamawa by now.
All right, now let's still take with INEC and the actions taken. Now, with what is unfolding right now in Adamawa State, how much damage has that done to INEC's reputation?
A lot.
Against the backdrop of what happened at the general election.
A lot. You see, in my part of the world, they say when you are accused of stealing a goat, you are not to be seen carrying the keys, the ghost keys, dancing. Quite a lot of opposition elements have said, oh, this INEC is cash and carry. This INEC, just wrote results. The results, in fact, all manner of things you get to read. Some of us have put our reputation on the line defending INEC. I don't work for INEC. I'm not a contractor with INEC. I've never benefited. I mean, I would not say that I gain any pecuniary or whatever benefit from. But I have stood because I've worked with the commission since 2002. That's over 20 years of working with different people within the electoral management body. As you know, in my former life, we were giving capacity building to electoral management body. So I got to know about the operations, procedures, and everything that gives me an insight into the operations. But with what has happened yesterday, the confirmation that somebody can blindly and I'm short of the adjective to use, descended into the fray, and a lawyer for that matter. And then you saw Bidani also giving an acceptance speech. And then we saw video of, I don't know, I don't understand Hausa. I mean, I don't speak, but I saw a footage where somebody was, where they said, was it the rec or somebody admitted that they were giving 2 billion. Whether it was true, whether it was false, it wasn't said in English, so I didn't know exactly what was said. Well, I think anybody, it's very unlikely, excuse me, that you bribe somebody with 2 billion. But I can't put anything beyond political class, desperate politician. But the damage, the dent that this has brought on INEC, it will take some time to go away. More so, if INEC does not go ahead in coming weeks to weed out all the bad elements people have been fingered to have compromised in the course of this 2023 election. Because this institution, after 2007 fiasco, it has taken a while to build people's confidence, people's trust in that institution. With the coming of Professor Jega, and then Professor Mamun Yakubu, it has taken a long while to start getting people to believe that the votes do count. But in a situation and scenario that we saw played out in Adamawa yesterday, it leaves a sore taste in the mouth that somebody will openly in front of camera make a declaration, and you say you are a lawyer, you are a resident, you have no role. A resident electoral commissioner, yes, by law, you could be appointed as a returning officer. Prior to when Professor Jega came and brought academics to help with the result collation and announcement of winners, resident electoral commissioners were also playing the role of a returning officer. If you recall, I don't know whether you remember, Mrs. Ayoka Adebayo, the resident electoral commissioner in Ekiti State, way back in 2006, well, the woman was put under so much pressure to make a declaration, and she had to recuse herself. She went into hiding. They were looking for her because she knew that result is not appropriate. But that was way back in the 2000. In fact, that was what brought about the genesis of inconclusive election. Mrs. Ayoka Adebayo was the resident electoral commissioner in Ekiti State then. But over the years, the trust, the confidence that people have was taken to high level, particularly in 2011, when an opposition element was able to defeat an incumbent. Then people say, oh, perhaps this commission should be given benefit of that. But with what has happened, my own take is that the blame still goes to the desperate political class. But why should you, as a staff of the electoral management body, allow yourself to be compromised, to be induced? It is the nature and the character of desperate politicians to look for allies within. Even Professor Atairu Jega said it, that politicians always earmark money to induce staff of the commission. And that's why you see they want to know who is the returning officer, they want to know who is the collation officer, they want to have the name. In fact, in 2023, we learned reliably that some politicians actually nominated people to serve as ad hoc staff. And of course, what will you do? Even if I were to be national chairman of INEC, you are recruiting 1.4 million people. I say 1.4 million. You concluded the whole exercise barely a week to election. Where is the time to do background check? Meanwhile, Section 8 of the Electoral Act says nobody working for INEC, either ad hoc or permanent, should be partisan, should be member of a political party. But who will do the screening for this huge number of people, 1.4 million, that you have to rely on? And of course, apart from those 1.4 million ad hoc staff, I'm referring to presiding, supervisory presiding officer, assistant presiding officer 1, 2, and 3, RAC Tech, and all of that. What about those who help with the logistics? NURT members who they rely on to deliver electoral materials. We know that many of these union members are partisan across. In Oyo State, let me tell you on good authority, anybody from Oyo State can bear me out. Right now, the leader of the NURTW in Oyo State is regarded as the de facto deputy governor of Oyo State. Why? Because of the influence he wields. And this influence comes forth during elections. The same thing in Lagos. Why did Labour Party go to court to say MC Oluomo should not be part of the distribution of election materials? But these are the same people INEC relies on for electoral logistics.
All right, so right now the collation of the Adamawa results has been moved to Abuja. Suspended. Yeah. I thought it was moved to Abuja.
Well, the last I read was that it was suspended. I don't think it will be right to move it to Abuja for whatever reason. The summon was basically to the REC, to the returning officer, to come explain what led to that unholy declaration. But I think it will be out of place for INEC to now make the declaration in Abuja. No, election was conducted because that could be a ground for petition. If they now make a declaration, because see, my sister, the 2023 Electoral Act is such that I knew someone, a politician in Cross River State, who lost her candidacy because the primary was not held in her constituency. They went to hold the primary outside of for security reasons. And our opponent went to court, up to Supreme Court, and they challenged, and they cited the relevant section of the Electoral Act to say, you are supposed to have your primary within. So, by extrapolation, moving collation out of Yola to Abuja might show some measure of let me not claim to have superior authority, but at least as at yesterday, what I read and the release that INEC issued, which I also have privilege of reading, was that the national, the resident electoral commissioner, the returning officer, and anyone that has to do with that election, they are expected, in fact, they said immediately should come to Abuja. Whether they were able to come to Abuja yesterday or they are coming today, it's for INEC to first find out. And INEC in that release also condemned the attack on its national commissioner because two of them were sent to Adamawa to supervise the whole exercise. I believe by now, today, tomorrow, INEC will also want to hear from those national commissioners and resident electoral commissioners deployed from other states what really transpired and why because the bottom line for me was, irrespective of whatever pressure, you as a resident electoral commissioner has not been assigned the role of a returning officer. So you should, the best you could do is to advise the returning officer, Prof or Doc, please, this is what the law says. You, and because even the procedure that I learned was that even that yesterday, maybe the returning officer had been put under intense death threats or something. We learned that when the coalition was to start in the evening of Saturday, it was the admin sec that started the process. Then all of a sudden, they postponed till yesterday 11 a.m. And then the reg surfaced. Where is the returning officer? If the returning officer is put under threat, your own is to report to Abuja to say, this is the scenario that is playing now. This man has refused to, conclude what we assigned him. So what do we do under this circumstance? But even if you are going to now appoint somebody else, there should have been an official resignation by the returning officer to say, my life is under threat, I cannot proceed with this work, I hereby resign, and INEC will now have the liberty to appoint a replacement to come and conclude, or even reinforce security around him to ensure that, because one thing that this whole scenario has pushed out is how far desperate politicians can go. How far they can go. They do not care whether lives or properties were destroyed. They just want to achieve their aim. And that's why it's very reprehensible for APC, Adamawa, and Mrs. Aisha Binani to have even accepted that kind of spurious victory. Because the right person was not, she is a serving senator. Was that how she was declared senator-elect in 2019? Of course not. Procedurally, you should have held back and even exercise caution rather than saying, because that same acceptance speech could have been given after the issuance of certificate of return. And that will come in 2-3 days. In fact, we have seen from the set of February 25 that I think 2-3 days after, they were all asked to come to International Conference Center and their certificates were issued. So why can't you just wait until the old dust around the legality or illegality of this, and INEC communicates you officially to say, yes, come and take your certificate of it. Then you can give your acceptance speech. That would have been in order. But when there are insinuations that money has exchanged, and then something that is procedurally wrong was done, and then the next thing we saw you accepting that victory. It shows that there is more to it behind the scene.
All right, so we're talking about, we have elections coming up later this year in November.
Yeah, November 11th.
Yeah, we have elections in Kogi and the rest of it. Do you think that INEC will actually see this as an opportunity to redeem itself from what has actually transpired in previous elections?
What is the redemption we are looking for? The redemption here is not so much about INEC. I keep saying, we're missing the point. In my column in The Punch last week, was it last week or last 2 weeks, when I engaged this issue, I listed 10 actors and stakeholders in the electoral process. 10. We always focus on INEC, but it's wrong. INEC alone cannot deliver credible election. Let me run you through the 10 actors and stakeholders. You have the political parties. You have the contestants, either aspirants or candidates. You have the INEC. You have the media. You have the civil society accredited observer. Then you have security agents. You have the judiciary. You have the legislature who makes the law. you have the electorate, and then you have the international donor partners. Why did I bring the donor partners into the whole fray? When you see Young Africa doing so much, you see CDD, you see, is it their funds? Is it the money made from the staff of CDD? Is money donation they received? Grants they received from EU, from USAID, from UK aid. You get what I'm saying? So they are doing so much, but the funds comes from outside. So the donor partner, whether we say their contribution is small, whether small or big, some of us would not have had a career but for the support from the donor community. Because before I decided to be on my own in 2014, I've worked with about a number of civil society organizations, from Electoral Reform Network, moved to International Foundation for Electoral Systems, work with United Nations Development Program. All these agencies were funded by foreign countries or multilateral agencies, like UNDP, like I said, the European Union, bringing huge resources, euros, pounds, dollars, to support Nigeria's democracy. So these are the 10. Now you single out INEC, and I've given you a scenario. The scenario I've given you is that if desperate politicians will not behave themselves, will not play by the rules, if they will use the Machiavellian principle of the end justifies the means, declare me winner, let the opposition go to court. If that is the attitude we are still bringing to November election, we will get worse result. Did you watch the press interview given by Senator Smart at the end about the APC primary in Kogi State, where he said he didn't see any voting in Kogi West, but results were declared. I don't know whether you watch the footage. He said even if election were to be rigged, they will say, okay, maybe the inflated figure. He said there was even no election, and results were declared. And somebody is saying, oh, if you are not okay, go to court. So my take as an election expert is that we are running democracy without Democrats. And Professor Mahmoud Yakubu's tenure will soon expire. You will see what will happen. Now, everybody is demonizing him. Oh, you did this. The bottom line is that I've given you a scenario. 1.4 million ad hoc staff that you have to recruit from nowhere. These are people you don't know their background. They could be cultists, they could be politicians, they could be people with political sympathy. Of course, not they could be. Some of them are. By their actions, we saw those who used 2023 election to cash out. You get? So, the law, the electoral says, if you are partisan, don't work for INEC. But you deliberately start, or as a political, desperate politician, you just say, INEC is recruiting. Oh yeah, you go and apply. They all apply because INEC is looking for youth corps members and students of tertiary institutions, students of federal tertiary institutions. So they apply that on the portal. You shortlist them, you train them, you ask them, these are the things you are supposed to do. And then they went through. What will you do? These people have only worked for INEC for 2 days. I don't know if you understand my logic. Because the 2 days is, after you have been shortlisted, you go through 3 days of training. It's not all those who are trained that will have their names coming out as successful. So it's when they publish the list, maybe 2 days to election, that you know that you are successful. Now, you are asked to come to RAC Center, Registration Area Center, to stay the night so that you can go to your place of deployment. You refuse to do so. Inasmuch, and quote me on this, inasmuch as INEC have to rely heavily on people they do not have control over, politicians will continue to reach out to these people and influence them to do negative things. And the only way, the only antidote is that both for NURTW people who they, you know the scenario that played out before February 25th, when there was no cash, and INEC chairman had to go and meet CBN governor and say, look, you are going to jeopardize this election because our vendors need cash. Emefiele said, as much cash as you need, I will make available. Now, they made the cash available, but what did we say on the day of election? I was an accredited observer. I observed this election under the platform of Nigerian Women Trust Fund in FCT here. I saw late commencement of polls. Should that still have happened? 7th election? But these people you rely on to move materials, they have their interest. So that partisanship, I don't know how we are going to deal with it, but I feel the way to go, and INEC has also renewed the calls for Electoral Offences Commission bill to be passed. If you have Electoral Offences Commission and Electoral Offences Tribunal, just like CCB, Electoral Code of Conduct Bureau and Code of Conduct Tribunal, that if we have Electoral Offences Commission, even if there is no tribunal that deals with political and electoral offenses, like EFCC is dealing with economic and financial crimes, if you now have one that deals with political and electoral offenses, that is well resourced, that can arrest, investigate, and prosecute. Because right now, many of us don't know, INEC only has power to prosecute, does not have power to make arrest, cannot investigate. So these are the nuts and bolts we still need to tighten. So if you are going to have a better election on November 11 in Kogi, in Bayelsa, and Imo. Now, these are 3 volatile states. You know the story. You know the history. Bayelsa, in fact, in 2015, election in Bayelsa was declared inconclusive. I think also in 2019. Bayelsa, Kogi, and Imo. These are 3 volatile states where politicians will want to dig deep. And in as much as we have a political class that believes that might is right, use anything, just win. I read a scenario of what happened in Kaduna State. I don't know what the local government is. They said military was deployed. And when the military was deployed, police also were there. So thugs came trying to snatch ballot boxes and all of that, and they were repelled. But after a while, the military were asked to leave. And when the military left, the thugs ran riot. The police used the tear gas. It was not effective. These people did all they could to prevent people from coming to vote. That's the scenario that played out in. So who ordered those military to leave? It's a political decision. Okay. So what I'm saying is that if the ruling party, and I'm using the word ruling party because it's not only about the ruling party at the center. Even that's why you see local government elections conducted by respective states winning 100% in these local government elections. Why is that happening? Why would a small party not be able to win councillorship and everything has to be won by the party that is in power at the state? It tells you of the mindset of the political class.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you're a gender activist.
Yes,
and as a woman, I'm actually all for, women having more say in the political space. Now, some quarters are of the opinion that the APC are desperate to announce Binani as, the first female governor, not minding the consequences. And you talked about the disappointment, when she came out with the acceptance speech and all that. Do you think it will have any negative effect on her career going forward?
It should, and definitely it should. It's obvious that she was so desperate, and because the little I read, the little I watched of that acceptance speech, she started by thanking Mr. President on his achievement to have produced the first female elect. Was it all about that? I mean, I've been involved in gender and elections. I've been a consultant to several gender groups like, Women Advocacy Research and Documentation Center in Lagos. I've been a consultant to Nigeria Women Trust Fund. I've been consulting for a couple of other gender-based organizations, RAPA, Women's Rights Advancement and Protection Alternative. If you go to all these institutions, I mention my name, they know me. And I've been working with them for over 15, close to 20 years in different capacities. So we belong to a platform that we are just actually waiting for this good news that for the first time we were able to break the glass ceiling. Mama Taraba missed it by whiskers in 2019 in Taraba. And so we were all over. But I knew it was going to be an Herculean task. 31,000 lead cannot be easily neutralized. And aside from that, because I was on NTA on Friday, and when myself and Festus Okoye Esquire were the two guests on Nigeria Today on NTA last Friday, I were looking at whether that election should have even been declared inconclusive in the first place. But when Okoye came out with statistics, I agreed that yes, it was right, because Fintiri was leading by 31,200 and something votes. Then there were 36,000 PVCs collected. Then 42,000 plus registered voter in all the units. So if you extrapolate, assuming without considering that, okay, 36,000 were even being expected to turn out, there is still that possibility that if it's your strong area, if it's your what's it called, your strong area, yes, you could maybe nick it by a small margin. Because I've seen election, even this election being won with 100 votes in some state constituency, federal constituency, the difference being that few. So, but the desperation that have been shown by APC and by extension his governorship candidate, I mean, the APC governorship candidate in Adamawa, for me, does not represent what Nigerian women would like to identify and associate with. Because if it were to be a case of being cheated, if there is an established cause of action that she was deliberately, or the system was being used against her, I would have been part of those who will have said on this morning, no, this is not right, give women a chance. But not that, one, there is an allegation of bribery, which has not been debunked. Then we saw the trend of events. The other thing, the leak tape of the rec, that let's help this woman, at least that phrase came out. Then the rec himself jumping into the fray. Then you accepting, it just shows that there is a deliberate act that is, maybe like you said, maybe APC just wanted to break the gas line, but that's not the way to go about it. When Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, the world mourns, because we were looking forward to the first female president of the US. But it didn't happen. Okay, 4 years after that, what happened? We have Kamala Harris as vice president of US, the first to be produced. But not under this kind of disputed election where obviously it was. In fact, my own projection as an analyst, I knew Kebbi was going the way of APC because of the margin of lead. But I had my doubt whether APC will have been able to neutralize 31,000 lead in a scenario where there are only 36,000 PVCs collected. Do you know why? Because that's 36,000 PVC collected, there will be unlikelihood of 100% voter turnout. So if 36,000 collected PVC and the normal trend that we see across the election is less than 50% voter turnout. So even if there are 36,000 people who collected PVC, that tendency that you will be able to neutralize a 31,000 lead is almost zero. So I had my doubt that that was going to happen, but we were cautiously optimistic that maybe a miracle will happen. But this is not the kind of miracle we're looking for. This is not the miracle at all.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Jide Ojo, for all the analysis and also spending time with us this morning.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, so that was thank you so much. All right, so that was Mr. Jide Ojo. He's a political scientist, a columnist, an author, and also a public affairs commentator. And with that, we've come to the end of a Daybreak on Trust TV. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Have yourselves a wonderful week ahead.
All right, that's Daybreak for today. Tomorrow is another one. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.